Hi fam, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Welcome to this July TBR video. I'm very excited about this because this is going to be the TBRs of TBRs. And why that is because in a month and a week or so, I will be turning 30. And as every avid book reader, I have a huge TBR which has a lot of books, but specifically classic books. Because I just don't know, I just don't seem to get to them, even though a lot of them are super interesting and I really want to read them. So, yeah, essentially what I'm doing now is that I'm going to try to read as many classics as I can before I turn 30. And why that is because I know there is no like specific age for you to read, and like you can read whenever you want and all of that sort of stuff. I get that. However, I want to be one of those bougie aunties at like a literary festival or a literary event who goes like, "Darling, I read Albert Camus in my 20s. It was absolutely stunning. The philosophy of it was just hmm I read the absolutely amazing African trilogy when I was in my 20s. Darling, have you read Toni Morrison? If you haven't, you absolutely must. I read her in my 20s, you see. It was stunning, stunning. The way Plath talks about the ethos and the pathos of things, darling. I've read her in my 20s, you see, and it was just, you must read it. You absolutely must. They don't need to know that I read this in the last month of my 20s, right? Like, anyway, I have this huge pile right here. Like, it's coming up to here. Okay, so you can't see, but it's a big pile of books, and I have chosen some of the best, or the books that I find which are personally things that I have been wanting to read and are like very highly rated and well spoken of. So I'm gonna break that down and tell you what these books are. I'm also gonna basically talk about them based on the genre and category that I put them in, or like generally they are in. So you can check out for the timestamp down below in case you want to read classics of that particular genre. So the first book that I want to read is the only book in the romance genre, and that is Pride and Prejudice. Yes, I have not read this book, and it is a goddamn shame. So everyone and their mom knows about what this book is about. I know the entire story as well because I've watched practically all the adaptations but not read the actual book. And yes, this is a very pretty version of the book. This book follows the Bennet sisters, and just Mr. Darcy, and you know what the book is about. I don't have to tell you what it is about. The second book is Rebecca, and this is a mystery. This book follows an unnamed woman who gets married to a wealthy widower and goes to his very fancy manor. Over there, she finds out that Rebecca was his ex-wife, and she perhaps died of not so natural causes, and it's kind of like the house and everything is kind of haunted by her memories. I don't really know what this book is about per se, but I've heard it's amazing and I'm excited to read it. Now, there are two books of the category of mindfuck because I just didn't know which category to kind of put them into, but I thought that they are adequately described in the category mindfuck. And the first one is Fight Club. So, this I know, I have not read the book, I have not even watched the movie. So, because I was like, I will read the book first and then watch the movie, and that ultimately never happened. So, this book is long time pending. So, this book, do I have to explain it? Everyone kind of knows what it's about. If you don't, then Google it. The fourth book in total, and the second book in the category of mindfuck, is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. So, I haven't read this book either, and I really want to. This book follows a man who is essentially very obsessed with himself and his image, and he sells his soul for eternal youth, essentially, and just a bunch of shit. So it's apparently horror, but I'm just intrigued to find out what this book would actually entail and be about. we now get into the genre of literary fiction, and that, my friends, is going to kick off with this very ugly version of The Great Gatsby. Now, The Great Gatsby is heralded as the greatest book of our times, and I don't know how I feel about that, because it's basically about like this guy who throws a bunch of parties because he's really intrigued by this one woman who he previously had a thing for, and he just wants to see her at the parties, and I just don't fucking know, but it just feels weird, this book, whatever I've heard about it, the story per se. So I don't know how intrigued I am to read this, and like, nah, we'll see, but it's supposed to be good. So the sixth book is Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert, and this book is about Emma, who gets married to this doctor, but then kind of realizes that she lives this very like meh kind of life, and she wants more excitement. So then she kind of gets into a bunch of affairs, of what I have kind of perceived what this book is about. But essentially, what I've heard is that this book is a lot about a woman's agency and her sexuality. So I'm really intrigued to find out more and actually read this book. And it's so pretty. It's what a wonderful yellow. The seventh book is The Stranger by Albert Camus. And this one is about this man who finds a murder that has taken place on a beach and then goes on to these very philosophical thoughts. And I have absolutely no idea where that will go, but Camus is supposed to be a great writer, and this basically makes you think a lot. So, cool. And then the last book in literary fiction and the eighth book in total is One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest. The Cuckoo's Nest. And this book is basically about this mental hospital in Oregon, I would like to say, and it's run by this very tyrannical nurse. And then there's this other man who kind of comes in and kind of who's like this prankster, etc. And he kind of puts things in an interesting way. I don't know, I'm not really explaining it really well, but I've heard amazing things about it. It talks about mental health and sanity, and yeah, I just think that this is going to be a good book to read. The next genre is historical fiction, and the first book in this is Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. And this book follows this butler by the name of Stevens and him reminiscing about his past. And from what I have heard is that this book reminds people a lot of Downton Abbey and Carson, and I fucking love Carson, so I am down to read this book. The 10th book is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong, but this book is basically about this warrior from a tribe in Africa and Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken, and he kills another clansman by mistake and is sent off for exile. When he's back, he comes and sees that his entire world and village have been colonized, and are being basically taken over by these foreign governors and governments. So it's basically his experience through that. Number 11 is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. And I have got this wonderful edition, which is a Reader's Digest edition. Now, this book is a coming of age novel set in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg, and it speaks of this one girl who lives in poverty but has very ambitious dreams, and basically what she does to kind of overcome it. And I've heard really good things about it, so I'm excited to read it. The next category is feminism, and the number one book that I have over here is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. Now, this is a bunch of essays, or maybe just one essay that she wrote, which talks about women and women in literature, women in the publishing world. I'm not too sure, honestly. I just kind of want to go into it blind, but I've heard such great things about it. I never read a Virginia Woolf, so I hope to read this soon. The 13th book is this very ugly version of The Bell Jar. If someone wants to give me a prettier version, please let me know. So Sylvia Plath's Belja is a book that has been spoken about so highly, and I haven't read it. This is basically a semi-autobiographical novel written by her, which speaks about mental health, especially her depression and her bipolarism, and being living as a woman in the world. And I just think that this will destroy me. So. The 14th book is Feminism is for Everybody by Bell Hooks. Now, Bell Hooks has written all about love, which everyone in like the Indian bookstagram world kind of knows about thanks to Rekha Jha. But, and I should plan to read this book as well. But Feminism is for Everybody is a book that really spoke to me just by the synopsis in general, because it's about feminism, and also it's it touches about these various topics such as reproductive rights, race, class, and just generally violence, etc. So I just hope to read that and maybe even read this. And the next category is magical realism. And for that, I have 100 Years of Solitude, which I have not read. So this book is by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who is known to be like kind of the father of magical realism, and I haven't read this one, so I just feel really sad about it. So if there's one book that I read in fucking July, it's gonna be this one. But anyway, this one is I don't really know too much, but essentially it follows a family over 100 years, and it's supposed to be really nice. So this one. Following in Gabriel Garcia Marquez's footsteps, another author that I have not read and who I've heard brilliant things about and I feel really ashamed about not reading is Toni Morrison, and for that I have chosen Beloved. Now this is actually a really old version of this book, I don't know if you can see, but it's just my dad's copy. But this book basically follows this woman who escapes slavery, goes to Ohio, but is then haunted by her past memories and by her baby who died and who's called Beloved. Like, they didn't really have a name, but like the tombstone had Beloved written on it. And I've been told not to go into it with too much of knowledge and just like let this sweep over me. So I'm very excited to read this book. I feel like this entire video is just me calling myself out on all the books that I haven't read, because the next book is Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafron. Carlos Ruiz Zafron just died very recently, actually, and this is one of his, I think this is a trilogy, and I've heard such good things about it, but I will just read out what this book is actually about, because this will say more than what I will actually say. So it says, Barcelona, 1945, a city slowly heals after the aftermath of the Spanish Civil War. An equestrian book dealer takes his son Daniel to the secret cemetery of forgotten books, where he must select one forgotten book to preserve for life. Daniel's choice, a mysterious book entitled The Shadow of the Wind by one Julian Carcass, seems destined to him. But when he sets out to find other of the author's other works, he makes a shocking discovery. Someone has been systematically destroying every copy of every book Carcass has ever written. In fact, Daniel might have the last of Carcass's books in existence. Soon, Daniel's seemingly innocent quest opens a door into Barcelona's darkest secrets, an epic story of murder, madness, and doomed love. Now, this book just sounds amazing, and I've heard such good things. So, alright, the 18th book is Parable of Sour by Octavia E. Butler, and this is a book that I've been wanting to read for so long right now. Now, this book recently came back into like my eyes because of everyone talking about black authors, and Parable of Sour, especially right now, is very interesting because it's a dystopian novel where it's a duology. There is a character, a politician, who is running for president under the campaign slogan of Make America Great Again. She wrote this in 1993, by the way, so that's crazy. But essentially, this book, Parable of Sour, talks about this post-apocalyptic world wherein, like, because of a plague and because of climate change and drugs, the drugs epidemic, and just a bunch of things, people live off in like these colonies, and the main character is a person who lives with her father, who's a pastor, and then like it gets destroyed and her family dies, and then she kind of has to move forward and find her own path of sorts, I guess. I mean, I'm not too sure, but that's basically what this book is about, and it's just, I need to read it. The 19th book is Slapstick or Lonesome No More by Kurt Vonnegut. Now, this book is again a dystopian novel which talks about where the world or the US has been ravaged by plagues, and hence fun times. So it's been ravaged by plagues, and this is a satire about a world post that. The next book is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. What is my word's mouth? I don't know. But this book is basically again a dystopian novel where we have now genetically modified humans, wherein now we live in a world where the class system works in terms of intelligence, and it's apparently a very interesting book which talks about consumerism and yeah, just a bunch of things. So this one. The 21st book, and probably also the 22nd book, is The Fellowship of the Rings. So yes, I have all the books, and I plan to read The Fellowship of the Rings and The Two Towers, because there is actually a read-along that's happening, and I'm going to link that down below. I think Kiara and some other booktuber are doing this, where we will be reading this together and then talking about it during a live show or something. And I just need that because these books are very intimidating to me, and because just of all the lore and everything. So yeah, I'm excited. I do want to read it, but I'm scared. The 22nd book is honestly one of a book that sounds so fucking interesting, and that is Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. And this is set in the 1930s in Soviet Russia, where the devil decides to come to Moscow with a naked witch and a cat that can talk who loves chess and vodka, and essentially they wreak havoc, how do you say it, in Russia and Moscow in general. And this also follows Master, who is a novelist, and Margarita, who is his lover. So, what? And then we enter sci-fi. So for sci-fi, I have 2001 The Space Odyssey, written by Arthur C. Clarke and also Stanley Kubrick. So fun story, Arthur C. Clarke wrote a short story called The Sentinel, and then Stanley Kubrick loved that so much that they decided to make 2001 Space Odyssey, and then they also simultaneously wrote this book. So this book is, I mean, people have told me not to get into the details of it, but essentially this book follows this one journey, like a space crew that is going to Jupiter along with this sentient computer that they have called HAL, and then they find something which could change the way we look at the human evolution. I don't really know, but it's supposed to be amazing. So I'm very excited. The 24th book is Neuromancer, and this is by William Gibson, and this is supposed to be a cyberpunk novel, which basically follows this world that we live in, which is the Matrix. This is before the Matrix movies that were made, by the way, where we follow this one man who is this cyber thief and just a bunch of shit that he does. And this cover is just amazing, and it is there's an introduction by Neil Gaiman, so that's why I bought it. And the 25th book I don't have with me right now, I'm trying to find it, but my books are in a mess, is Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. Now, this is a book I've already read, but I read probably like 10 years ago, so I don't really remember it. All I remember is So It Goes, but it's an anti-war novel following this one man as he travels through time, and it's basically goes through, he literally travels through time, and also you see different perspectives of him at war, and also after the war, and apparently he's abducted by aliens. I don't really remember it, but I remember it to have really affected me in a great detail. So I just want to get back to it and kind of reread it. Okay, we are down to our last five, and our last five are Indian classics. And for this, I chose a rather contemporary one, which is Midnight's Children. I've actually already spoken about this in my Asian Readathon TBR, and I didn't get down to reading it, and I really want to read it because it just sounds fucking amazing. The book is basically about these kids who, at the strike of midnight, which is when India and Pakistan won its independence on August 15th and 14th, in respectively, they basically are given these powers, these magical powers, and it's about one person in particular trying to find the others and all the stuff that kind of happens after that. The other book that I want to read is R.K. Narayan's The Guide. Now, this book was made into a very popular Hindi movie called The Guide, which has Dev Anand and Vahida Rahman. But I haven't watched the movie and I haven't read the book. But I've heard the book is amazing, as is the movie. However, the book follows this man who is kind of like this con artist, travel guide sort of fellow, and he goes to jail. Once he is out of jail, he goes and takes refuge in a temple where people kind of think that he is this holy man, and essentially he lives out his life like that, and there's a bunch of shit that happens after that. I don't quite know, but that's why I'm going to read the book. We're down to our last three. The third last book that I want to read, which is just, I've been wanting to read this book for so long, and that is Annihilation of Caste by B.R. Ambedkar. Now, B.R. Ambedkar is basically the father of the revolution that is against the anti-caste movement, which is the Dalit movement, and he in the 1930s was invited for this seminar of sorts, and he wrote this speech, which is this 100-page long essay called Annihilation of Caste. Now, the people who he sent like an advance copy of this speech to the people who were organizing it, and they had like things that they wanted to take out because they were scared of like what people might think, because it speaks against Hinduism as a religion, and he was just like, I'm not even going to change a comma. So they scrapped the entire like whatever conference altogether, but essentially he then printed it out and it became a book, and it's amazing. I really want to read it. The second last book that I want to read is Untouchable by Mulk Raj Anand, and this follows the life of Bakha, who is a sweeper, and it follows just one day in his life, in fact, where he thinks about the life that he has lived and the sort of existence that he's kind of born into, also the book says. So yeah, it's a short read, it's supposed to be good. Mulk Raj Anand himself is not a Dalit, so it's not an own voices book, but I'm intrigued. And then the last book that I want to read is Parther Panchali by Vibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay. Okay, it's like a little bit of a tongue twister for me, but this is a book about the 1930s. I think it's set in the 1930s, where this family in rural Bengal travels to Varanasi to kind of make a better life for themselves, and this is supposed to be a classic and just one of the greatest reads that are out there in terms of translated Indian literature, and Satyajit Ray even made this into a movie, so I am very, very excited to read this because I've been wanting to read this for so fucking long, and I still don't have the book, but I plan to get it soon, so there's that. So anyway, that was my TBR for July and like the first week of August till my birthday, which is on August 9th, and I will be most probably vlogging this entire experience, so do subscribe to my channel to check that out. If you have any other suggestions of classics that you think I must absolutely read, and I have not put this in my list. Please do let me know if there are any books that you want to read with me of this classics list. Let me know as well, and I will catch you in the next video. Alright, bye.